Honestly, to this date, I still don't have a clue like what MVP means, to be honest with you. Not that, I don't like the word. It's just like it can be so shallow or so deep, right? I've been through 4 or 5 different startups and every journey is different. So I think particularly for Commit, unlike typical product building, we kind of went the opposite way. Like Greg and I, like my partner and I, we know we can build communities. But what we don't know is if we can actually make it a proper business. My name is Beier Cai. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Commit.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Laphart, and today how Beier Cai established a remote-first developer community where engineers are paid to find their next gig. All this and more on Code Story. Beier Cai has been in the tech space for 16 years, almost exclusively in early-stage startups. The third startup he worked at did pretty well, which was Hootsuite. He was the first engineer writing the first line of code for the social sharing platform. Towards the latter years at the company, he fell in love with helping engineers grow their careers and managing teams. Passionate about community, started organizing meetup groups outside of the company. Outside of tech, he's married with 2 boys. He finds that being a father helps him to be a better business owner, thinking towards building something for the long term. Being based in Vancouver, he loves to ski during the winter and be outdoors hiking and camping in the summer. After Beier left Hootsuite, he was interested in getting back into the startup life and solving a new problem. He got together with his now co-founder, and a particular problem stood out to him: the difficulty in building a successful career within the startup ecosystem. He was puzzled to see great talent leaving the startup world, and he wanted to fix it through a private professional network. This is the creation story of Commit.
I left Hootsuite because I'm just really missing the startup world, right? So I decided to move on, started a company, and sold it about 2 years later. After the exit, I was ready to tackle a new problem. My good friend, Greg, who is my co-founder, we met at Hootsuite in the early days. I was the engineer and he was the business person. Different departments, but we share a lot of ideas, ideologies in terms of building high performance teams and stuff like that. So we got together, we explored multiple ideas, and one of the problems just really stood out, something that's been bothering me for a long time. I think through my personal experience in the early days at Hootsuite, and also a lot of startup engineers I've met over the years, share the same problem. It's just not easy to build a successful career in the startup ecosystem. It's very hard to find the best opportunity for you outside of your local circle, unless you live in San Francisco, right? Technical interview just sucks. It's nonsense. And, and engineers who work on the startups, they have to do this over and over again, right? You work at a startup, a year later that failed, you move on to the next one, you have to do another 10 rounds of interviews, which is just not, ideal experience, right? You join a company, there's usually small team, lack of support tailored, for you. So how do you become successful at the job? How do you grow your career? Personal growth, it's never been a priority at an early stage startup. And then just all the financial stability that you have to deal with. So I think, given all these problems and seeing a lot of great engineers, they chose to work at big companies like Amazon, Facebook. Yeah, it puzzles me and also painful for me to see that great talents leaving the startup ecosystem. That is the reason why I felt like this is a problem really worth of solving. So obviously it's a journey that starting from solving small problems to, where we are today. It's been quite a journey, but in a nutshell, Commit is a private professional network, for remote startup engineers. We empower our engineers to build better software and grow their career faster. So you can kind of think of us as a mashup of a Y Combinator plus LinkedIn for remote software engineers. We use data to connect developers together to solve problems faster. Essentially in 3 key areas. We have this peer support component. let's say, intelligent peer support that connects engineers to get unstuck, on day-to-day, problem-solving activities. And then the other aspect is learning and development, which is really personalized way to help engineers to grow their career. And then the last one being, helping engineers to find the right career opportunity to switch to. So those are the three key components that we have in our private community.
So tell me about, what would be the MVP, Beier? What would be the MVP, the first product or portion you built for Commit? How long did it take you to build? And what sort of tools did you use to bring it to life?
Honestly, to this date, I still don't have a clue what MVP means, to be honest with you. Not that, I don't like the word. It's just it can be so shallow or so deep. I've been through 4 or 5 different startups and every journey is different. So I think particularly for Commit, unlike typical product building startup venture, usually you have an idea, you build a product as a free version to get traction, and then you start offering paid service, right? But for us, we kind of went the opposite way. Greg and I, my partner and I, we know we can build communities, we can tackle technical interview problems, we know how to support engineers, but what we don't know is if we can actually make it a proper business. What we ended up doing is building this quote-unquote enterprise version to generate revenue from the get-go. Our very first MVP is essentially a low-level, no-code email plus spreadsheet. What we do is we bring engineers in, we hire them directly as an employee for financial stability, and we go out and then connect with all the major seed stage VCs and source high-quality startups. And then we make all the manual connections, and we design a pilot program where engineers who join us get to try out different startups for a few months and then pick the one that they're really passionate about and want to stick with long term. So that part of the business, that's how we started, right? With literally no software at all, right? Just kind of put them all together. It's kind of weird, honestly. I came from the background of building software, and I have to hold my urge to write any line of code, right? But I think, after this program, what we call it the EP program, engineer and partner program, became mature, and we were able to help a lot of engineers. We started using a bit more high-level no-code solution like Notion, Airtable, HubSpot, Typeform, you name it. All these tools, we kind of built certain automation together to make the whole process a bit smoother and less kind of labor intensive. I think that carried us for over a year, to continue fine-tune the EP program in terms of bringing engineers into our community and then bringing startups in and matchmaking. Since late last year, after we raised a seed round, we were able to start really thinking deep on the long-term vision that we have in mind. This whole helping engineer finding opportunity, that's an entry point, that's the enterprise business that proves that we can build a model around this. But really our long-term, vision is this private professional network. So now we are building proper software platform, transforming the whole matchmaking business into the software, but really start looking into building the platform, for this private professional network.
You touched on these a little bit, but I'm going to give it space for a full answer. Tell me about the decisions and trade-offs you had to make. And maybe one of them was, not using software in the beginning, right? Or another was when to, add automation pieces or advance the product. But tell me about how you coped with those decisions.
It was quite a struggle thinking about, on one hand, there's all these amazing no-code solutions out there that is pretty mature, that you can just use and get things working. But at the same time, it won't be long-term, and you won't be able to customize the way you want it, right? So there's going to be pain point. On the other hand, we know we can build software, right? And we can build it pretty fast. Myself, my team, we are quite experienced. We still decided to go with the no-code solution, just really optimized speed over quality. At this time, we are doing a lot of migration from all these no-code solution to software-based solution. And that journey has been quite a mess. And I will still make the same decision, but definitely there's consequences that, people need to be aware of. Another trade-off that we kind of have is just essentially, do we take the time to figure out what we build next? Meaning let's do proper research, user research, let's make sure we design the mockups and then validate, with the users. Or let's just build something really quick and get it tested right away. That's always been a constant kind of struggle that we have to deal with. Now we are becoming a bit more mature and we are following certain product development cycle, in terms of user validation. But back then we just used a combination of both, based on a specific use case.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted vCISOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com. How did you go about maturing and progressing the product? And I think to wrap that in a box a bit, what I'm looking for is how do you build your roadmap and how do you decide, okay, now this is the next most important thing to build?
In the early days, it's just all in my head, right? But then obviously that wouldn't last for long. I think one thing we did right was, really focusing on, our customer problems. Other than thinking about, we can build this feature, we can build that feature. Really, let's talk to our current customers and potential customers like engineers and just figure out for this startup ecosystem, engineers trying to build a successful career in the startup ecosystem, what are the problems, challenges they are facing? So I was able to talk to over 100 engineers. I was able to gather almost 200 problems. And then I used something called opportunity solution tree to organize those problems into a tree structure. And I think, having that view gave us the sort of kind of sense okay, these are the problems worth of tackling, and this is the priority, right? So it kind of gave us 3 to 6 months of visibility into, what we need to tackle. So I think that's a really interesting kind of experiment. I've never done that before. This is something I've learned from another, product manager that I've met. I think that approach worked out really well for me. We never really even thought about building a 1-year roadmap. It's just too unpredictable for us. Most of the time, we just have 2 to 3 months of roadmap, maybe 6 months at very high level. Every problem we work on is really just very experiment driven. We use a combination of quantitative data using amplitude to track the overall kind of quantitative metrics. We also use products like Hotjar to track qualitative data, where we can actually see the user behavior and then use that to inform our user experience. and see what we can do to improve that, along with, the bigger problems that we've gathered and then that we want to tackle, through different experiments. From a software product perspective, we are more like a pre-seed, I would say. But our business overall, because we started with the enterprise, sort of business, we are like post-seed. Our team has like a dozen employees, and building an early stage product, with a dozen employees, communicating the vision, the roadmap, synchronizing, aligning everyone, that's been quite a challenge for us.
Well, let's switch to team. So how did you go about building your team? And what did you look for in those people that indicated that they were the winning horses to join you?
Obviously, skill set is a big factor we look at. But then the most important thing I look for is, does this engineer or this member has a growth mindset? And is this employee highly, collaborative? So I think over the years, I've interviewed over 1,000 people throughout my career. I've hired, over 100 and working with lots of people. And I think just the thing I've learned is it's easy to train people up on skill set, whether it's a technical skill or even soft skill like communication. What's really hard to train people up is the mindset. So I think, for early stage startup, I felt like the most important thing is having that growth mindset, being able to, like a learning machine, right? Always constantly learning and relearning, and happy to tackle challenges, step out of the comfort zone, and highly collaborative as well. Because in early stage startup, I just really believe a strongly collaborative team that can tackle challenges together is just really important quality. So those are the two things I usually, look at the most, on top of just the skill set that we're looking for.
Well, let's flip to scalability then. So interesting question, given I know you started without software, right? So I'll see where you start this question, but did you build this to scale efficiently early on, or have you been fighting this as you grow?
We have a very, very unique path here, actually. So normally what I would do is, I would optimize speed for quality, or like over quality anytime. As an early stage startup, you have so much constraint. The last thing you want to do is build a perfect software that nobody uses, right? So I think, I would just optimize speed for quality, all the time. That being said, the uniqueness of Commit is our customers are engineers building early stage software. And our mission is to, help them build better software and grow faster. What we ended up doing is, in the early days, as our community started shaping up, we have dozens of really senior software engineers who has done it, been there, done that before. And what we did is we got a few folks together and created an open source software called Zero, a scalable infrastructure on the cloud that you can build your any software on top of, in a matter of like 10, 15 minutes. The reason we did this is really to, as a toolkit to serve our customers, who are early stage startup engineers. And now it's been powering over, a few dozen softwares like, out there. And that's kind of what we use, for our own software platform as well. So that gave us really like, a scalable infrastructure, with Docker, Kubernetes, CI/CD pipeline, building on the Amazon cloud or GCP cloud, auto scaling, load balancing, analytics, you name it. Pretty much all the major components are encapsulated into this open source software. Even though our intention wasn't to build a scalable system, as a startup, but we kind of make this project and we build our own project on top of this open source project. Our system is actually pretty scalable.
Interesting, with open source, have you had, a lot of contributions, or have you had people find, commit, and join, the network based on that open source repo?
It's actually something I really hoped would happen. This Project Zero, it isn't really a core business of ours. We just never were able to manage to give it a lot of attention. It's just been something organically happening. As any open source software, there's so many of these days, you gotta actually properly market it. Hiring a developer relation person to make sure, this thing can, is known by the community and being supported for the community. So when they got stuck, someone is helping them, right? All these things that should have been done, we just never had the chance to do this, right? we have a few hundred stars on the project on GitHub, which is really nice, with zero promotion or anything. At some point, we are definitely looking for, hiring a developer relation person to really kind of put some, gas on the fire here.
Well, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
I would just say, it's the, over 100 engineers, whose career, that we helped. So for Commit, we are not, it's not like, we are a LinkedIn type of network where we need millions of people. Every user, every customer who join us, is very high stake. They put their career in our hands, right? We literally help them finding the next career opportunity and supporting them along the way, right? Just looking back, thinking about the success stories that we've done and engineers that we helped. For example, one of our engineer, he tried a few different startups through our program and landed on one early stage startup. And now he's the CTO at the company. And he actually, became a leader, a CTO, and started hiring engineers from our community as well. Stories like this just makes me super happy and feel like this over 2 years of effort is all worth of it. I think one thing that really helped us to really focus on the quality other than the numbers is having mission aligned investors, who really give us space and time, to figure out how we can create deep value other than, more users. So we actually have about 2,000 engineers who apply to join our waitlist. And, my partner, Greg, and I, we constantly look at, okay, should we open it up to more, engineers? Should we open it up to more engineers? And decision was always, no, not the right time. Let's just really focus specifically on this particular customer segment that we can do really, really, really well. And that's exactly what we did. So rather than having 1,000 people who likes us, right now we have over 100 people who just loves us. So I think, at some point we definitely will open it up, being able to focus on, deep value for a small set of users in the early days and making a really big impact. That just makes me feel really, really good and proud.
Well, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
Yeah, one mistake is actually just back to the no-code solution, right? So we had this Airtable, Notion, Typeform combination of no-code solution, right? And as we transitioned to software-based, we kind of rushed it. We didn't expect any problem. We just treated it as a typical software migration project, right? I've personally done that many times. And what happened was, as we build out the equivalent functionality on the software, our internal stakeholder folks and some of our users just really super reluctant to shift to the software. They would rather stay on the no-code solution than the software solution that we built. Treating from a no-code solution to a software solution, you really have to look at it as an overall product, not a technical migration. I think that's kind of where we did wrong. The user experience on the software platform wasn't exactly the same. We thought it would be better and more streamlined, without doing much research and validation. And it just turns out to be either something that the users are not used to, or it's actually not intended to do exactly what they're looking for. Unfortunately, we wasted quite a few cycles there, which I would totally, do differently, if I were to start it again, right?
I think you're right on with that. I think it is the pattern where you build a no-code solution and you basically try to run it as long as you can until the seams burst, and then you've got to build something a little more robust. But if you get to that point, then I guess your idea is validated.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is validated on the old piecemeal, right? And now you want to build a new shiny thing. And is that actually shiny, right? I think that the key is really treating this migration as building a new product for a user base, but better, right? And I don't think you should take the shortcut, just like build it and then migrate people to use it.
Well, what does the future look like for Commit, the product, the network, and for your team?
The only thing that I have in mind is the whole remote working trend, especially for tech professionals. I think Greg and I, we started Commit very focused on solving startup engineer problems. But, one interesting thing we did when we, launched the business is we decided none of us have ever done remote working before, but we both somehow believe in, the future is remote. So we started the company as a remote first company. We never had an office and, stuff like that. We built out the team around virtual, Zoom, right? But then over the years, especially with COVID happening, we just really strongly believe, that is where the future would be, right? Especially for tech workers and particularly for software engineers. So we're betting on, 5, 10, 20 years, who knows, remote working would be the default trend. So when that happens, every engineer's work interaction will have a digital trace. There's going to be a lot of data. So I think for us, how can we leverage that data to connect engineers to solve problems faster, to grow their career faster? Geolocation and career opportunities will be fully decoupled. So how can we connect engineers with the right opportunity, creating that liquidity? With that, big trend in mind, we'll continue to focus on building this private community for remote startup engineers. And we'll focus on 3 key areas. One area is really providing them career-long value, right? Not the transactional one-time thing, but really career-long. And then just really building deeper relationship with them. We want to make sure we really understand the engineer, their skill set, personal, professional preference, personal interest, their growth goals, all the things that can really help us to help them, to grow their career. And then become a layer of identity. For example, a personal brand, that we can help them to build. So instead of, a LinkedIn profile, which is quite generic, how can we help them to build a personal brand that can really showcase themselves, right? As a software professional, right? And then also, for other purposes, like finding a career opportunity, serving as a resume. For Commit, we have a software platform, but it's also a community. So there's going to be offline experience as well, right? So how can we build a combination of online and offline experience, like local groups, right? So I think that's something we quite look forward to as well.
Well, let's switch to you, Beier. Who influences the way that you work? Name a CEO, a CTO, an architect, really any person you look up to and why.
Yeah, I have a few people. Like my first one is just really my co-founder, Greg. We have very complementary skill set. My focus is on product and engineering, but as a co-founder, I also think about the business, the long-term, the vision, the strategy, right? And I think Greg he's a very visionary person, and I learned a lot from him. On a daily basis, he's really the most influential guy for me. I also have a personal coach. I've never had a coach until half a year ago. Really valuable for me to figure out who I am, what is the things that I need to focus on, what is the strength and weakness, and what should I work on. Like, I think having a personal coach has really changed the way I think about myself. So I think that's quite interesting. I suggest founders to try that as well. 2 person particularly influence the way I work, the way I think is like when I started Commit, Eric, who's the author of the Lean Startup, I read his book and just really loved the approach. Immediately after that, reading the Running Lean book by Ash, which is more kind of practical guide. I think I followed a lot of the framework in my early research to make sure I'm building something, that has value before actually building the product and business around it. The other person is Armin, who's the co-founder from HashiCorp. When I was at Hootsuite, we were pretty early adopters of Vagrant, a tool that HashiCorp created. Over time, we started using more and more tools that they created, right? The DevOps tools. In 2014, I believe, I got a chance to go to SF and met Armin in person. We had lunch together. Back then, they were a really small team, like 3 people in the office. And then just seeing them over the years growing, just been really amazing and admirable. One thing that is really influential for me is like their laser focus on developer experience. They're solving complicated, infrastructure problems. But at the same time, a lot of people do that, but then they have such a special, attention to developer experience, making sure whatever they make is easy to use, well documented, well supported. I think that's a main differentiator for them. Although I commit, we're not building DevOps tools, but that developer experience, that focus really influenced my approach in terms of building commit.
They've done incredible work over there. Yeah, I had Mitchell on the show, and I really enjoyed a lot of his stories in the early days, and how he wasn't really intending to build HashiCorp, and then all of a sudden there it was. Well, we talked about a mistake earlier, and you kind of alluded to this in your mistake, but I want to see where you take the question. So if you could go back to the beginning, what would you do different, or where would you consider taking a different approach?
So personally, my focus and my strength is really building product and technology. I've never done any product management or product design, right? And my partner Greg is more on the big vision and business side of things. So I kind of expanded my responsibility managing product and manage design, only to learn that I'm not good at it. If I were to do this again, I would partner up with either someone who's very strong on product, or someone who's really strong on design, at least one of them, to complement my skill set. So we don't have to go through a bunch of issues that we had before. Yeah, so I think, look at the key areas of skills that is missing and see if you can partner with someone. Could be a business partner, could be one of the first hires, right, to focus on. Another thing I would do differently is just, from a technical perspective, we started building our software using a Node.js. But then the senior folks on the team are really good at Golang. And we started writing Golang for certain kind of components of our service. And now we have this mix of Golang and Node.js. Node.js has been giving us troubles in terms of, not a typed language. Now we're dealing with both, in the early stage product. I think the last thing I would say is just a bit of funny, naming things. Someone mentioned before, the two hardest problems in software is naming a variable and caching management. So I think that naming a variable applies pretty well to the business. How do you name your persona? How do you name a project? How do you name different things at the company? Because the business evolves so fast, things can change, right? The worst case scenario is the name you gave a project, and because the project changed, the name is really misleading now. What do you do with it? So I think for us, one bad decision we made, this name doesn't make sense. Let's just give it a better name. And turns out it's just a slightly better name. And now you have a name that doesn't make sense. And then another name that is half-baked, refers to the same thing. It seems like a trivial problem, but actually when the team grows, I didn't do the exact calculation, but I'm pretty sure dozens of hours, across the team would spend just to figure out, what the hell we're talking about it here. I think we would have been better just to spend a fraction of the dozens of hours and then just, figure out actually a better name, the best name to describe, this project or this customer persona or whatever it is, right? So anyways, that's just a interesting thing that I've learned along the way.
Well, Beier, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
This is more reiterating the point. I think it's really important to focus on validating the ideas first before raising money or building the product right away, right? Just talking to customers, just really talk to customers, talk to potential customers, validate the problem, really to see, if people jump through hoops and they still, use your product, it means you really have something there, right? I think, that's the sign I'll be looking for. Don't rush building the software. It's expensive. It takes a long time. Another thing I would say is when you feel that you're ready to talk to the investors, it's probably a bit late. One thing I've learned is the second that the whole raising fund became an idea, I think that is the time you should just start talking to tier 3 or tier 2 investors. Because every conversation through the investor, it really serves multiple purposes. It helps you validate your idea, you get feedback. It kind of forces you to really think through your elevator pitch and value prop. and then building relationship along the way, right? So I think that's something that I've learned, and I think every entrepreneur should think about as well. And I think the third thing is just don't do this alone. I don't know the stats these days, but when I got into the space, founders usually just be the solo founder, right? I think it's better now, but I personally really appreciate having partners, for a new startup that shares complementary skill set, but also shares the same vision. Startup is a hard journey, lots of hard time. I think the glory times is probably just like 5% of the overall journey. 95% is just like nightmares, right? That you have to deal with, right? And how do you deal with that nightmare? Having a partner is just really, really important.
Oh, those are fantastic. Well, Beier, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of Commit.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me, Noah.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Running an online business is hard enough without the stress and time consumption of managing hosting. Whether managing one WordPress site or dozens, Kinsta's managed solutions offer speed, enterprise-grade security, and an intuitive dashboard. With 24/7, 365 human-only expert support, get peace of mind that your sites stay online, secure, and performing their best. Start today and get your first month free with migrations handled for you. Learn more at kinsta.com/podcast. That's KINSTA.com/podcast.
Taxes was waiting around for your taxes to be done, which led to worrying about not getting any money back. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes in a day to get you up to $4,000 fast with a refund advance loan. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Expert filing only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Refund Advance has $0 loan fees and 0% APR. Refund advance loans may be issued by First Century Bank, N.A. or WebBank. Terms apply. Subject to approval.